What's up, y'all? Welcome to another outdoor Free China pod.
I think we can do this until the rainy season starts.
It's not even that hard of a rainy season. We just had like 2 weeks of it last year.
No, I mean like summer. Oh no, it was more than 2 weeks, man. Like basically from
I don't know about that.
June until August. It was more like 2 months.
It wasn't raining every day though.
It was raining, every other day, and then there was 2 weeks of nonstop rain in that period. But I would say it rained pretty much every other day for at least a few minutes every day during the summer.
For a few minutes, yeah. Yeah, but it wasn't like, I don't know, it wasn't that bad. The 2 weeks where it rained every day was bad. But mostly just because I had anxiety about our house flooding.
Yeah.
I don't want that. As long as that doesn't happen, we'll be all right. I'm going to have to move all these plants, too. Because if they were there when those floods happened, those things would all be gone.
Yeah.
Which is not what we need.
I mean, they were on this nice raised platform here until somebody decided that this abandoned house is now their abandoned house.
Yeah.
Did you put this chair here?
No. I think one of the Shanko boys did.
Why?
I don't know. People do weird stuff sometimes, man. But that's not a big deal. That's
I'm
easy.
just-
That's easily movable.
I know. I'm just wondering why everyone just feels like
Someone wants to feel like
just
a king.
rearrange. It's like in America, if you just like ripped up everyone, if you just went into someone's garden and just moved all of their shit and killed their fish, the police would be there. I mean, there would be.
Yeah.
And-
yeah. It's technically, I don't know if that's our property. That's the
It's
thing.
not our
It's like-
property, but nobody. It's like
I agree with your sentiment, though. I agree with your point.
it's like a back alley that like I mean nobody lives in this alley except
And no one's moving into that house anytime soon.
no. I mean they're just busybodies.
Yeah, but yeah, that's the word for it. I was thinking about that as well today. The kind of difference, because I took to eat, and we were driving. I was just
Have some
thinking.
busybodies.
I was thinking about the difference, just broadly, the difference between things in America and things in Taiwan. Like driving a scooter, first of all, and then driving a scooter with another man on the back, who's like pretty comfortable with just like putting his legs up against me and stuff. Like that wouldn't happen. I feel like that would, people would be like, "What are you, gay?" or something, you know? I feel like especially scooters are just seen as like unmasculine.
I
And then
remember-
riding with another man is unmasculine. Kata.
Yeah.
Speaking of masculine, Kata's here. What were you gonna say?
I was riding to get groceries today and I had the same epitome, but it was because I stopped at a red light and then watched 2 or 3 old people run the wrong way through traffic through the red light. And just wondering why the fuck am I the only one following the rules?
I would say a large majority of people follow the rules. It's just a lot easier to notice the people that flagrantly violate them.
I would say in America, I've in like my entire life, I can count the number of times I've seen people run red lights, and I don't think I've ever seen somebody ride the wrong way through traffic in like a major road. And I saw that happened multiple people in one intersection today.
Which major road did you see this on?
This was on Gusan 2nd Road at the
Okay.
intersection right in front of the police station.
Yeah. So that's extra. I was gonna say though, like in the area. Oh, there's a big frog over there. He just went under the thing. But
I hope he doesn't end up in that glue trap.
I hope he doesn't. I mean, living in a small town, I saw a lot of people break laws, but it wasn't like, they weren't like major roads, because there's no major roads where I used to live. It's all countryside. But I saw people blow stop signs all the time.
Yeah, blowing stop signs. I've seen lots of that too. I mean, I've done that. I've maybe at night if like nobody's there and you're just waiting on and on, you'll run a red light. But yeah, anyway, it's totally different. People just flagrantly, especially old people, flagrantly violate the laws, turning into oncoming traffic without looking. It's just nonstop. I would say it's not everybody, but it's probably 10%, 5 to 10%, let's say,
Maybe.
especially in this area.
Yeah, our area is also disproportionately older people
And students.
and students. Yeah, so it's super young and super old people, like the two worst
Yeah.
demographics. Like if you're getting insurance in like the U.S., those are like the top like premium rates, because no one wants to insure those people because they drive like trash. Oh well. Such is life.
Well.
That's why I barely drive anymore.
Yeah, I was driving and I just kept hitting red lights and red lights and red lights, and I just saw everyone driving like a psychopath. I was like, it saves me like maybe 5 minutes, and it's nice to not have to carry all my groceries home on a bicycle, but it's honestly like less stress to just ride a bicycle.
Yeah, that's why I like going to work and stuff. It's just like I just take public transit, man.
Yeah.
It's like so much more peaceful.
Yeah, it is, man. Driving's no fun here.
I don't think it. I never had that much fun in the U.S. either, though, because
But some people do in the mountains. I know in Taiwan we have some.
driving.
friends.
Yeah, driving in like the countryside is okay, but like the U.S. countryside, I would say is not fun to drive in. A lot of times, especially at night, because there's so many deer. Like where I live, you have to be careful all the time. And I always, since I started driving at like 14, I always have driven quite slow. So it hasn't been a huge deal. But like, still, I mean, I've hit a deer before, and it was not fun. And
I remember
yeah.
a story from last week. I just wanted to say before I forget. I guess rural Missouri has one of the lowest sperm counts in the country.
Oh hell yeah, brother!
Because of they speculate that it's because of all the pesticides, because it's like a
that
fairly
makes sense.
whatever you guys grow there, you probably use a lot of pesticides.
Corn and beans, yeah, but yeah, they definitely spray pesticides. I mean, I have I went to school with people that do like crop dusting and stuff still, so like in biplanes, or not biplanes, but
Drones.
yeah. Before long, that's what they'll be using because it's a lot safer. But they drive like small two-seater planes and crop dust. So yeah, they definitely use quite a bit of pesticides. I'm glad for at least when I was young.
Did you hear that scream?
Yeah.
Why?
I grew up mostly on a cattle farm, so there wasn't too many pesticides there. But
Just a big pool of blood and gut effluent.
it wasn't. I mean,
they probably didn't slaughter.
They
on
didn't
site.
slaughter, yeah, and it wasn't like a big cattle farm. It was like the guy had like 30 head of cattle, and like it was a big area.
Is head
too.
not plural?
No, 30 head.
You don't say 30 heads of cattle.
No, that's city stuff.
That's city stuff. We know that head is an uncountable noun. If you don't have your grammar right,
You big city folks with your silly grammar.
you don't even know the countable verb countable noun rules.
Yeah, that was. I don't know. I did enjoy growing up on that cattle farm. It was a good place to grow up. Very free. Swimming in the cattle pond, getting leeches all over you, peeing in the yard, all the fun stuff.
You're the one who always stops me from doing that here.
Yeah, because this is concrete.
It smells.
This is concrete, and it pools up and doesn't. And you also pee in the alleyway that gets no sun, so it doesn't evaporate. There's just dirty urine smell.
It's not like you open your window.
Well, this window here doesn't close because there's just a piece of styrofoam that's broken in half inside of it. So
Let's move on.
all right,
Let's cut this out.
what's on the agenda? Cut it out.
I mean, cut it out of the recording, not cut out the.
No, I know. That's what Hillary told the big banks.
Cut out.
Cut it out. Quit it, guys.
There's a lot of little things. I mean, talk about any Ukraine updates that you'd like to speak of.
I just found out that the mayor of Kyiv is jacked as fuck.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's a former heavyweight boxer.
I've seen his face, but I've never paid attention to his body,
I
considering he's like spring there.
Yeah, I saw well, people are doing like thirst shit, which is kind of dumb. They do that shit with Zelensky too, where they're just like, "Oh my god, he's so fucking hot." I hate when people do that with politicians. It's like
Ugh.
he's kind of a badass, but like, stop. Like, if you're
He
like,
is
keep
a badass.
keep your horniness off my timeline, please.
I have to say about him, everything that I've read has basically been that the Western governments have been telling him to surrender and get the fuck out of Kiev since the very beginning. They're like, you can have this safe government in exile and in a third country. Just get the fuck out. And he's like, basically willing to die for his country. And because he didn't run away, the military did not collapse, and he basically saved Ukraine. And he may have single-handedly saved the world order against the better advice of the Biden cuckolds.
Yeah, the worst advice. Yeah, speaking speaking of all that, I thought it was hilarious. Did you see Macron wore a sweatshirt and jeans to do a meeting with old Zelensky?
Why? I don't get it.
Because he was trying to be cool like Zelensky.
I'm not gonna do a fake French accent because I feel like it would be very insulting what I'd say.
He's like, "Oh, Zelensky, do you know my wife is double my age? It's very French."
I'm not gonna. I'm gonna pretend I don't understand
I'll do it.
the reference.
I'll do it.
Sacre bleu.
Your hoodie is so handsome. I want to do it to you.
Oh my gosh.
Stop. I just thought it was funny because he's like trying to be cool too, and he's just not. But anyway,
I like that. At least the Economist they've been pumping out a lot of weird shit lately that pisses me off about how it's a major shock to the world order, but basically we can't do anything that would dare to threaten gas prices. But what they did say is they went against Macron for saying that there should be a Finlandization of Ukraine, which is basically, I don't know what Macron thinks he means by that, but the idea is basically that they'll have partial sovereignty and be like a completely neutered, demilitarized puppet state is what it would end up being, and basically grant a present to Putin for starting this war. I think what needs to happen is he can have whatever stupid concession, symbolic concession he wants to pretend like he got something out of the 14,000+ Russians who have died.
Yeah, give him a clap on the back and say, "You got rid of the Nazis. Good job, bud."
But if we actually reward him invading a sovereign country, I shouldn't say we because it's not up to us. It's up to Ukraine. But I'm seeing a lot of Western countries push against Ukraine, basically saying, why aren't you accepting these peace terms? You know, just end this. Like, are you fucking kidding me? They invaded the country. Like, if they want to stop the war, that's their fucking problem. They should pull their troops out and stop the fucking war. That doesn't mean Ukraine has to, like, back down and give them concessions because they're the losers here. The Russians are the fucking losers here. Yes, they could technically win if they're willing to basically annihilate their entire armed forces, but they're not the winners here.
Looking at history, they have been willing to do that, but I don't know. It seems like the Russian soldiers are less and less willing to do that, and so are the
based
the
on
people.
These sugar lines.
Yeah, well, so are the people less and less willing to send their children to die for nothing, like literally nothing. I've seen numerous protests of people just being like, "My boy was supposed to be going to training, and they send him into like a live fucking battle for some piece of territory we don't even fucking want."
I think anyone who has kids in Russia is upset. But unfortunately for the West, most Russians, because of how terrible their country is, don't have kids anymore. They have one of the lowest fertility rates in the world. And yeah, they basically have like no young people left. A lot of them just left the country. So
then their troop reserves might be dwindling quickly.
Well, they have mandatory conscription coming up in April. Basically, they're going to pull like every young man out to.
That's not going to be popular either.
It's going to be very unpopular. And the West. Some people in the West, I shouldn't say the West as if it's monolithic, because half of them are saying it's a devastating threat to the world order. Half of them are saying we need to protect gas prices at all costs. Half of them are saying we need to give concessions to Russia to just end this. Yeah, it's very confusing.
I was thinking that I always wonder how much stuff is posturing, because Zelensky has been constantly asking for this no-fly zone, which basically no one in the West supports. I don't really support it because I think it might be pretty dangerous. I think there's easier things
I'm more and more supporting it. I think that we should just put in a bunch of patriots, at least in Lviv and Kiev.
But I think
just truck them in. We don't even need airplanes. We could just have patriots.
I suppose it gets dicey with like some of the requirements for it. But anyway, I perchance could be persuaded.
Hell yeah, brother.
But I think that I think more of it is basically a bargaining chip. And this is how you bargain: is you set the expectations way further, and then you say, because this is what he said when he met with Congress was, "Give me a no-fly zone, and if that's too much, then give me those fucking jets you promised me." So I think it's like try to get whatever concessions you can, because I don't know. It's been back and forth on what they've been doing, and I think
you mean in terms of what Ukraine wants from the West,
what they can get. I mean, it's about what they'll give, because like we talked about the jet thing last week.
I don't know if you've seen the signaling. I posted an article about this, but there's a lot of signaling that Russia is basically shouldn't say Russia because this has never been Russia. That Putin is basically trying to back out. RT pushed a couple days ago that I think it was RT or Sputnik there was like the headline that they were having peace talks basically, which they haven't done like at all.
They've done a couple rounds of peace
No,
talks.
I
but
mean they haven't been highlighting
Okay,
that
yeah,
because
yeah.
they know
Okay.
that the peace talks are bullshit. They're not going to go
fall through. Yeah.
And now I see more and more. And right after those peace talks, I saw basically Zelensky come out and say, we know now that we're never going to join NATO. And Boris Johnson then came out and said, yes, Ukraine will never join NATO. Like a lot of things basically pushing the fucking frighteningly obvious truth that Ukraine is never going to join NATO because it's filled with cucks, basically. But that was Russia's major sticking point. That's what they claimed they wanted, even though now 2 or 3 extra countries are going to join NATO.
Yeah.
Which is Sweden and Finland.
Doesn't really make sense.
It's complete bullshit, but this way it gives him like a tiny win if he wants to back out ahead of time, which it increasingly looks like he is.
But another thing that they were asking for is like those quote unquote autonomous regions like the Donbass, and Zelensky said he's not giving any territory. He said he even
I saw that.
Yeah, he said like even Crimea is not up for, that's Ukrainian. It's not up for grabs anymore. So
I mean, that's the fucking crux of it. Like if they're done, they can't handle the invasion anymore, and they want to pull out. Why the fuck should Ukraine give concession terms?
Oh, absolutely. No, I totally agree with that.
But they're trying to frame it like, oh no, this is our peaceful way.
He's unwilling to work with the losing side.
You saw that
did
article.
An illegal invasion.
Yeah. They're like, oh, they're not cooperating with us in these peace talks.
Yeah.
And I saw the perfect line from Albania, like in these UN talks, which is basically Russia can't start shooting first and then pretend like it's a doctor.
Yeah.
Like they started an invasion, and then they came out in the UN today, and they were like trying to hold some condemnation because of all the civilian deaths that they are fucking causing. Basically saying that Ukrainians aren't allowing them to evacuate into Russia as if. Even though they fire on those convoys anyways.
Yeah, it was hard to tell about those those lines of like that they set up those like escape routes or whatever.
Oh yeah, straight into Russian territory.
Like yeah, most of them were in Russian territory, and it happened like 2 or 3 times that like immediately after they were like, okay, these like refugee routes are open, and then immediately it broke down. They're like, yeah, there's live fire on there. Like we can't. Like we're not going to get our people killed. Not to mention that Russia is dropping cluster munitions. Not to mention they're like planning like essentially what are like IEDs everywhere. Like it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous conversation to have. And I saw the same thing when basically Western quote unquote Western nations basically were going to send weapons in. Russia's like, you're continuing this and creating more civilian deaths. It's motherfucker, you started it. No. There would be no civilian deaths if you hadn't invaded. You could have stopped. There would be zero civilian deaths if you never crossed their border.
This is what pisses me off about a lot of the diplomatic double talk too from like Turkey and China. They're like, we're just in favor of peace right now, and we think that all the parties involved. Excuse me, all the parties. This is a fucking invasion.
Yeah.
Like. Please give me a break about all the parties involved need to take steps to lower hostilities.
It's insane. Well, you saw that. I think I sent it to one of the groups that Global Times had made a post. I'm pretty sure it was Global Times. Made a post about how it's they basically support the bravery of the Ukrainian people and how horrible it is that they're dying, and then they deleted it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they deleted it.
Well, the Chinese are really fucking confused in this. They
don't know what to. They've gone back. It's like conservatives in America, honestly. But Putin is a masculine man. He doesn't have any pansies in his army. And then they're getting routed. And it's like, yeah, we should stand with Zelensky. Zelensky, he's not a fruit cup. It's just like
Republicans. Not all of them, but
it's a mixed bag. It's not a monolith either.
I would say the old guard of the party has been unflinchingly in support of Ukraine. I would say the new guard, the Trumpian wing, has been very, very dicey on this. Like,
MTG has been a psychopath. Talking
MTG?
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh,
she's lost her mind. I saw her trying to break into like talk to these January 6 people, and they wouldn't let them in. And she's like, we are allowed to go in wherever we want. I'm a member of Congress. But anyway, that's like a side note. It's like, wow, you're pretty entitled there.
Did she say anything about the Ukraine invasion though?
She was saying stuff about Putin. I don't remember
Putin.
About little Pooty Poot, as George Bush likes to call him. I can look for exact quotes.
It's okay.
I just see so many things from all of them. I think she was one of the 6 or 8 members that recently didn't vote to for like increased sanctions against Russia.
Oh, she's a
monster.
She's a monster. There's a lot of monsters though, I'd say, and China is one of them.
For sure.
The cringiest thing about China, I would say, in all of this is like since the 1960s or 1970s, their biggest thing, their entire understanding of the basis of the international world order has been the inviolability of sovereign borders and territory and non-interference in other countries' affairs.
Yeah.
So when they basically like take a neutral stance on Russia invading Ukraine because I don't know, because Xi and Putin were giving each other handies under the table or something like that. I don't understand this connection here, because by not challenging this, he's fundamentally undercutting the entire principle that China stood on the last 70 years, for the last 70 years, I would say. Because this is a classic example. And not only that, they keep going back to the same thing, where basically they claim that in this situation, they're analogous to Ukraine, having Taiwan being analogous to the Donbass region being stolen by the aggressor, which is the United States, which in this case is Russia. And yet they still maintain a neutral stance. So even though they clearly have a victim complex here, and they have it figured out who's the victim, they just won't say it. Like they have all of the analogies in place for everyone to figure it out, but they're too cowardly to just admit it.
Well, because they don't want to piss off Russia. They don't want to piss off Russia.
Yeah, but
it's one of their major trading partners. First of all, if they lose Russia, that's going to be a big hit to their economy. And if they lose,
Russia fucking cares. Like Russia doesn't care about international opinion here. As long as they keep getting money, the money coming in and out. For fuck's sake, and more to the point, like they care a lot more about whether or not Russia gives them the military aid that they've apparently been asking for than they care about whether Russia says, statements about the civilian losses in Ukraine or something like that. It just undercuts their entire argument about the role of the international system, about their value of it, and then basically not saying anything, just staying silent.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I mean, I generally agree with that. It's pretty preposterous.
It's all bullshit. And then you see Russia's arguments. I mean, getting more and more. I've seen some of these online trolls talking about like these bioplants and stuff like that, saying they're weapons of mass destruction, and therefore this, even though they didn't start talking about this until like 3 weeks into the invasion, that this was a preemptive strike against WMD facilities.
Right, yeah.
Even though, by the way, every time Israel bombs a Syrian or Iranian plant, they say that that's totally unjustified and that they need to respect other countries' sovereignty.
Yeah.
So you can't have it both ways. Well, apparently you can.
You can.
As long as you have nuclear weapons, you can just do what.
You always can. It's been proven time and time again. You can say one thing and do the exact opposite.
If you have the power, if you have
like
nukes
you said,
and oil.
if you have nukes, nukes. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Here's your MTG quote, by the way. I
don't like these acronyms.
She said, "If we truly care about suffering and death on our television screens, we cannot fund more of it by sending money and weaponry to Ukraine to fight a war they cannot possibly win."
Oh. Yeah, she sounds like the same people in the Biden administration that were telling Zelensky to get the fuck out of the country and just let it fall.
I also saw people critiquing Zelensky for doing a meeting in his T-shirt instead of wearing a suit. There was a GOP congressman who was like, "How dare he meet with the United States Congress and wear that?"
He's in like military fatigues because the city is on siege.
Yeah, he's been living in a bunker for like 3 weeks.
I really hope these people like get. Oh, I need to be careful what I say.
But I would just love to see. It's the same thing as when they tell regular working class Americans to pull themselves up by their bootstrap. I'm like, go do it for 2 hours. 2 hours. Go work at a McDonald's. Like have Marjorie Taylor Greene go work at a McDonald's for 2 hours and get screamed by like a shift manager. She would lose it. She'd be like, "I'm not taking this." It's like, oh no, you have to live on this wage now. Like, try it. You can't do it. Not to mention living in a war zone. Those people are the people that would have flipped immediately. Oh, I can have a regime in exile? Fuck yes. It means I don't have to do anything? Well, love it. Thank you. It's utter nonsense, and these people have to stop taking people like this seriously, because unfortunately a lot of like the mainstream media still takes them seriously and acts like they're actually like have legitimate opinions.
I think one of the biggest problems here is that Twitter allows their nonsense to get magnified. I still blame Jack Dorsey and his regime.
They have a lot of power. I mean, I guess, but like I don't see a lot of what Marjorie Taylor Greene tweets. That
thing right there, was it not a tweet?
No. She primarily uses Facebook because she's a fucking boomer. Okay, so a lot of the right wing people mostly use Facebook.
Really?
Yeah, because older people tend to use Facebook, and some of the new right might, but I feel like most of the new right is more on like Telegram or like 4chan.
4chan? I don't think that's like real right. I think that's like underground right.
Well, that's what I mean by like the new right. Mostly what I mean is like
underground insults,
kind of like rubbing up against the neo-Nazi shit.
Yeah, I don't know. I know nothing about that.
That's I don't know. There's of course like there's still like a couple people who are maybe like just conservative. I'm a little socially conservative.
I think there's a lot. I think
conservative.
Probably the majority of
just average people, but I think those people don't really have opinions, which is good. I think
they
more
just
people
follow
need to
Jesus.
stop having opinions.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The thing is they don't, because I see some of those like regular people who are like middle-aged and they don't just follow Jesus. They work backwards from their conclusions and try to stuff it into the Bible erroneously.
I mean, I'm not defining what following Jesus means. I'm just saying that's how they would describe.
They use it as an excuse. Okay, I could agree with that. Is that they say everything is that's what Jesus wants. That's what the Bible says.
Sounds like fundamentalist Islam, actually.
It's fundamentalist any religion, man. It's fundamentalist Judaism as well. You don't think so? You don't think like super like rabbinical people?
Yeah, I guess they do. I've seen a lot of it. I know my dad complains all the time because, supposedly, one of the principal values of Judaism is the sanctity of human life. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that the Orthodox have been psychotic on is refusing to close anything due to COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Or wear masks.
Yeah.
Or get vaccinated. Because it's like, particularly like closing... but apparently masks is a big thing for them too, that they like, everything needs to be in person, and like human life, as long as it's like only a 3% chance or whatever that you'll die in agony on a ventilator, then, getting close to God in this big sweaty group of people is more important, I guess. It's confusing and they have a lot of contradictions and they break a lot of their own rules. So I agree.
That's all I'm saying.
I think about it.
That's all I'm saying is I don't think it's just religion either. I think people use all kinds of stuff to work backwards from the conclusion that makes them most comfortable. You can do it with whatever. I mean,
speaking of, I heard an interesting take. I wanted to get your opinion on this. This was from somebody in America, I assume. This was on Newsweek or something like that. And basically they were saying that
you mean Newsmax.
that we shouldn't sanction gas because it hurts working class people, and that Congress is just making working class people suffer for the war that Putin started. I mean, I don't buy that at all, but I want to hear your take first.
I think that is... I agree with the part that it hurts working class people the most. That is true. But what we should do is, number one, we should fix gas prices at bare minimum because it's ridiculous. Gas prices are at about the same rate they were 10, 15 years ago. It's not like they're like astronomically high. A barrel of oil is like $90 right under. Right, no, it was just under 100 today.
Oh, was it? I haven't been following.
The last I saw, the last I saw was it was under 100. Now it fluctuates all the time, so it could have gone back over. But regardless, the reason that they're paying more at the pump is because of opportunist oil companies that know they can make money off it. So, first of all, you could fix oil prices, and second of all, just nationalize the oil industry. I'm going to keep saying that over and over again. Nationalize these fucking industries. If they cannot stay away from like monopolistic / cartel practices, then fuck them. You don't get to operate anymore.
I would say that it's international, though. It makes it a little bit more complicated. I agree with you in principle, but I don't think it's even as complicated as that. Whether or not, first of all, we should probably raise the tax. Gases are artificially cheap, and we should probably raise the taxes on that. It should have been done a long time ago because of the cost, and because we honestly should be pushing away from that, considering.
Yeah, but you have to actually push away from it first. Otherwise, I do believe it disproportionately affects average people. Like, especially poor people in rural areas, and also people in places like inner cities where there are food deserts because they have to drive farther.
I think that they need to be done at the same time, particularly when you're talking about new plant production. If it's cheaper for an energy company to build a nuclear plant than it is for them to just build a gas plant and burn cheap gas, then they'll just keep burning cheap gas. I think.
Oh, I can agree. I can agree with that.
Because
When you're
it's not
talking
only
about power, when you're talking about power, but when you're talking about gasoline for cars, I think it gets different because it definitely disproportionately affects average people.
Yeah, but I feel like that's the American curse, and we just have to fucking deal with it. Honestly,
Then give some sort of monthly payment, a gas stipend or something.
I honestly think that people should stop using their cars so fucking much.
Well, I think people should be encouraged to, but dude, where I live, there's nothing. There's not a bus for hour and a half.
And
you
that's
have to drive a car.
And that's a fucking problem.
It is. No, it is, but you have to fix that problem before you just go, well, suck it up. You can't tell people who are making shit money to suck it up. They have to drive that. We had to drive 45 minutes to buy groceries.
Here's the thing. If there's not a problem to begin with, you still won't have any. If you don't raise gas prices, if there's not a pressure on the government, they're not just going to put a bus because they think it's a good idea. They're only going to put it if their citizens are outraged and they can no longer afford to drive cars.
I don't know that they'll care. I don't know that they'll care.
They maybe won't, but in that case, we're just going to be driving cars until the end of fucking humanity.
I think in America we probably will be. I think
till gas runs out.
I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but I don't like punishing poor and working class people.
This isn't punishing.
It is. It's punishing them. You're making them pay more. My
I
family
disagree.
that has to drive their kids to fucking hospital appointments weekly, like, yeah, you're punishing them.
You're not punishing them. You're saying
you're taking money out of their pocket. I mean, that's punishing them.
We're not raising the price of gasoline. The market is raising. The market will artificially raise it because we are saying you can no longer put gas that funds bombing maternity hospitals in your car.
I'm not.
So if a poor person has to pay slightly more for their iPhone so that it doesn't use slave labor, sorry, that's the fucking cost. Like, I can
agree with that.
I don't think we are not saying poor people you have to pay more. This is an open market. People made choices. They bought their cars. They chose their jobs. They got commutes. If the prices go up because the gas that they're using is now being used to kill civilians with that money, then sorry, that's the fucking world we live in. And if you want to temporarily subsidize it, then temporarily subsidize it. But
that's all I'm saying.
But saying that we need to subsidize people's fucking shitty choices forever because they refuse to transition.
That's where I disagree. I don't think that it's people making shitty decisions. Those people, a lot of the people where I live, they don't have many other options. They've grown up in houses that don't. One, it's areas where you don't get much education. I'm literally the only person that did not stay in the town that we lived in or move 45 minutes away.
But that's not the point of the discussion. The point is, are people at all to be held responsible for America being one of the worst fucking gas consumers in the world because everyone just wants to buy a giant fucking truck,
I agree
build
with you on
gas-fired power plants, and then they go and complain that it's hurting poor people. Like, you did make those fucking choices.
But the people aren't really making those choices.
So
now,
if somebody buys a fucking
in terms of like buying like an SUV instead of like a more fuel efficient van
or a
I agree
pickup,
with you.
like I know where my sister grew up, that place is poor as shit. They spend all their fucking money on pickups. That's why the fuck should children and refugees suffer because poor people in North Carolina decided they needed a fucking smokestacked F-150. They spend their entire income on that instead of buying a fucking Corolla. That's
not what I'm saying though. So I mean, I agree with that point of your argument. So I want to make clear that that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we should put these sanctions in place. But what I'm saying is that we have to create other options before we just say like, you made bad decisions. Because, yeah, maybe you can say, yeah, getting like a Cummins diesel with fucking straight pipes on it, yeah, probably not the best use of your money. At the same time, these people have slowly watched their fucking jobs be exported to other countries, and
Oh, because of the party they voted for the last 30 years. So honestly, like
to some degree, but not really, because the Democrats did fucking PNTR with China, and they also did NAFTA. Bill Clinton did NAFTA, so you can't say it's both parties.
NAFTA did not export jobs to China. NAFTA barely
it exported jobs
to Mexico.
Yeah,
some.
That's still not jobs.
The data that I've seen,
hands.
most of the jobs that got exported in Mexico, we got new jobs, new manufacturing jobs in the United States to support those industries. I haven't seen any evidence that really that NAFTA caused like the massive over what do we call it, overseas job shifts that WTO exception for China or like some of the shifts towards East Asia did, and I would blame all of that on Republicans. And most of the people,
both parties voted for PNTR with China, is what I would say. And I would say we should end, just like we just ended permanent no trade relations with with Russia. We should also end them with China.
We should, but I think like going down this like victim chain that we just have to continue to subsidize like them because they've had a hard life. It's fine if you want to do it for like 5 years. That's fine.
All I'm saying is create a pipeline for options, and create good paying jobs. Raise the fucking minimum wage and things like that. And then
I totally agree with that.
Then I'm okay with it. I'm just saying you can't just say like you fucked up, even though both parties wanted to do the same thing.
I'm not saying we're punishing them. I'm saying that we can't cut off Russia because it's gonna hurt.
Yeah,
poor people, which is
yeah.
30% of like the gas is consumed by poor people at best, or something like that, in the United States even. And by the way, we don't buy gas from Russia. Like it's just world market prices that are going to shift because of this. Because it's not about the United States. It's about whether if the sanctions go into place, it's the EU that will stop buying it. So it'll be poor people in the EU. I'm not saying that we shouldn't think about them, but I'm saying to say that that's a valid argument and that we need to make that our primary concern, I don't buy.
That's what I'm saying, though, is that they're easily, especially in the United States, there are so many easy things we could do, like start to build high-speed railways across and put buses.
I'm saying even without that, because it's impossible to pass anything with the two-party gridlock. Even without that, we still need to completely sanction that oil. And
agreed. Yeah, I mean we should definitely sanction the oil, but
100%.
I still do think that poor people are going to be the people that suffer, as they always are.
And by the way, so the original point that I wanted to make is what a bullshit argument that is, in the fact that who the fuck do you think is fighting in Ukraine and Russia besides poor working class people? Like by basically subsidizing that war effort, you are killing poor, and not only poor soldiers who are going to fight on the other side, but the refugees who are too poor to fucking flee. So it's a broken argument.
Or are fleeing on foot and getting killed along the way.
Yeah, it's a broken fucking argument all around, I would say. Gas prices, we cannot run the world according to fucking gas prices.
Yeah, that I obviously totally agree with. And like you mentioned earlier, and like I said, is we can nationalize the fucking oil companies. Please God, in the United States, nationalize all that shit. But we also could just say like you're not allowed to charge this much for gas, and it's literally only because of greed of the oil companies, just like the pharmaceutical companies do. They just jack up prices because they think they can get away with it, and most of the time they do because they own both parties. So I
agree, but I think people should have been thinking about this 30 years ago, when basically the gas prices kept going up, and they just, as soon as they go down a little bit, you see truck sales just surging across the country. People are short-sighted as shit, and I think maybe there needs to be a little bit of tough medicine for people to stop buying the biggest fucking car they can every chance they get because they think it's culturally cool.
I don't know that everyone does that. I think it's
everyone I know did.
I mean, I lived in I don't think I lived, except for once I started school. Let's say this, from when I started elementary school, kindergarten, until I went to 12th grade, I didn't ever live in a city that had over 500 people.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the people I knew owned like sedans, cars.
Mm-hmm.
There were people with giant like Cummins diesels, but it was like 2 or 3 kids, and usually they're like the rich kids that had like rich parents that kind of like gave them a bunch of money. There was 1 or 2 that bought like a secondhand old truck that then they like put straight pipes and rims on or something. But like, yeah, it happens. But I feel like it's similar to the argument about like these inner city people need to just stop wasting.
I'm not.
all their- I
I'm
think
not
it's-
giving
I-
anecdotes or I'm not giving stereotypes. It's statistics. If you look at SUVs and trucks are selling.
SUVs I agree with because a lot of suburban people like to buy them because they think they're safer.
I think trucks too. Trucks. A lot of people think that they're farmers and think that they're handymen, and then never use that. And they really don't need to haul anything. They just do it because they like the image. And if you get 6 miles per gallon, fuck you. Honestly, if you don't need that for your job,
if you don't need it, but yeah, I'm talking about people where I live who do. Like I had a truck and I used it. I'm not a farmer, but
if
like,
you do
I
for your
used it
job,
to,
I mean,
Yeah.
well, we all use our cars. If you use it for your job, then you probably are not starving. Like, if you're using your truck for your job, then you have a job. You're not one of the poor people who've had your job outsourced overseas. If you are unemployed and you still buy a fucking car that gets 8 miles per gallon, fuck you.
I would like to see what percentage of people that is, and I would put the blame so much higher on the elites than I would. This is my whole thing is I don't understand the need to like blame these like the 3% of the U.S. population.
I'll show you the statistics. How many people buy trucks?
You're saying poor people. You can't say two different. You're saying two different things.
I'm saying everyone who buys a truck should suffer the consequences.
So people that need a truck for work.
Then they cut it out of their fucking profit margin. That's not the poor people in Ukraine who are being bombed's problem. That you can't have enough excess profit to pay for additional gas prices. If you're using it for your job, you are a business owner. You're not a fucking poor person.
You're not necessarily a business
Pull up your
owner.
fucking pants. Like
no, oh Jesus Christ, man, that's some fucking pull yourself over your bootstraps fucking.
It's
Republican
not.
shit.
If
Yes,
you buy
it
a car
is.
and then you can't afford the gas prices and you want the government to bail you out, that's literally the definition of asking for fucking welfare because you made a stupid choice.
No, I don't necessarily agree with that. Yeah, if you're buying a huge truck, but if you buy a small like an F-150 or like a used Ranger or something, like that's not asking the government for a handout. It's the fact that our fucking economy is owned 90% by the 1%.
You keep making these completely tangential arguments. You could buy a Corolla for a third of the price. You know that. Right?
I'm saying if you need a truck for your job.
Then it's for your job and you have a job. So
but it doesn't mean that you're making enough. This is my point. Just because you have a job, most people are fucking living paycheck to paycheck. They're not making enough money to really pay off these things.
How many people, I wonder, have a truck and use it for their job and are poor? That's I think what we're arguing about.
I think we're getting into like such like difficult statistics that it would take forever to.
Okay, let me look up truck
Suffice
owners.
it to say, I'm just saying I don't think those people are the main offenders and the reason why this is a big problem. And
that's one of the reasons why the United States has like made almost no progress towards fighting climate change.
You think it's because of the small amount of people that own trucks?
No, I think it's because of the extremely large amount of people who own trucks. I'm finding the statistics right now.
I think that's more to do with auto manufacturers and the fact that
auto manufacturers selling a truck for 3 times the price of a sedan is their fault. Have you looked at the price of a truck? Like it's not even close. If you buy a truck right now, it will literally be twice the price of a comparable sedan.
Depends on what a truck is. It depends on what kind of truck.
A pickup truck.
What kind of truck? Are you talking about a Ranger or are you talking about an F-350?
A Toyota. Let's say a Toyota Corolla versus a Toyota Tacoma. Okay? It'll be twice the price. About twice the price. An extra $20,000. So it's not that they're like, attracting people to buy trucks. People want to buy trucks. And those prices are so high because people want them so bad. They're willing to pay twice the price of a fucking car for it.
My question is then why are people buying them?
Because they think it's cool. Which means it's their fucking problem.
Okay.
Okay,
I don't know if I...
The number 1 car in America, Ford F-Series. Number 2, Chevrolet Silverado. Number 3, Ram pickup. Number 4, RAV4. Number 5, CRV. So top 3 are pickup trucks, and then the next 2 are SUVs.
Well, the F-Series is a large variation.
They're all trucks. I mean,
they're all trucks, but there's a big difference between what these trucks are. I agree with you. The other thing I think is that they have made these trucks so big that it's completely unnecessary. And I think there is something about this was my point earlier about like this idea about like people in the inner city buying like a Cadillac or something. It is this idea of like conspicuous, or as I like to say, conspicuous consumption. but I don't know. Like I also kind of get that. I get
it, but then fuck off. Pay more fucking gas prices. If you think that it's cool, that's not my fucking problem.
I think we also should like subsidize things like EVs and stuff.
I think Tesla gets enough taxpayer money.
They're done with it. I think we should tax like we should subsidize actual like smart people that are making them.
I can tell you all of the companies that are making them are already giant conglomerates.
And also, then maybe subsidize the building of like more like electric vehicle charging stations, especially in these rural areas.
Sure.
That would be okay, which they were supposed to do with Build Back Better, and that fell on its face because the Democratic Party is ineffectual at best. If not, they just want to fail.
Well, now that we ranted about whether truck owners are good or bad,
we had to have one of these arguments where we're like arguing about the smallest like statistical thing that neither of us can like really prove without doing like 45 hours of research.
I found that pretty fast.
You found that
trucks are top 3, man.
Trucks. I agree. People like to buy trucks. I'm just saying
there's no way that the majority of people are using that for work. Come on.
Most of those people. But what I'm saying is, most of those people that are buying them that don't need them are people that can afford them because they live in the suburbs.
And they also can afford them because I would guarantee the minimum prices on those are probably 3 times the price of a comparative subcompact, like a Yaris.
But those people, like a lot of the people that I know have a truck that they bought 10 years ago. My truck that I had in the United States was older than I was, and I still drove that thing. And it got okay gas mileage, but it wasn't great. But it was also I didn't have any money to buy another car.
Listen, I know. I was poor in the United States, and I dealt with shitty gas prices before driving a very old car that did not get great mileage. But like that's part of being poor in America, and that's why I think that this is so tangential to the core issues around having a livable wage in the country or making Medicare for all, so that you don't need to choose between gas and healthcare or gas and food.
That's why I think we need to do those things.
I totally.
All right, folks, we're back. I don't know, but at some point the recording died, so we may have not lost anything, but we may have lost some portion of that. We may have lost 90% of that pod. I'm not sure, but that's all right. We're back. We decided that the DTP, our policy platform, is going to be
ranked choice voting.
And then money out of politics, followed by Medicare for all.
We should figure out a way to make DTP also acronyms for those 3 policies. Not right now, maybe.
P could definitely be
provide Medicare for all.
Well, P could be. It depends if you want to put them in order. That's
deliver Medicare for all.
That's going to be more difficult. But P could be. What do they call it in Australia? What do they call ranked choice voting in Australia? Priority voting, right?
I don't know.
I think it's called priority.
Priority voting.
Priority voting. So all right, we'll figure it out at some point. We'll get it done, and then we'll start.
Deliver priority voting. Let's just keep it natural. Deliver ranked choice voting. Take money out of politics. Provide Medicare for all.
That's pretty good. It's pretty good. I like that.
Oh hell yes.
We're gonna. Also, yeah, I was just talking with one of our correspondents and getting increasingly frustrated at what a fucking neoliberal hellhole Taiwan's turning into. And I'm being a little bit facetious about that, but just the fact that like wages have essentially stagnated, they're not growing as fast as inflation is.
There's supposed to be a minimum wage increase. There was a few months ago.
They keep increasing it, but it's not enough. And housing prices are exploding, so people can't buy houses anymore.
They were not willing to deal with that, especially not before elections.
And I increasingly see people just saying like, "What can we do? What can we do?" It's like, well, fucking, how about vote third party? At least in Taiwan, third parties can run.
I don't see it. If a third party was like legitimately talking about that, like they made it part of their policy platform, I could see them getting a lot of young people's votes.
I think they have to build some sort of base first. And I got some contacts from some of the
State building party.
TSP people. So we're going to try to interview a couple of TSP candidates, hopefully coming up to the election. Because I think that will be interesting to see how they do. I mean, they're only city councilors, but
city councilor candidates.
They're city councilor candidates. That's true. So we'll see, and maybe I don't know. Maybe I'll try to get in contact with. There's 3 DPP candidates running for re-election and 1 running for election for the first time. This is just out of Fongsan, because that's I wrote about the election there recently. So, by the way, everyone
What election?
keep checking out the election that's coming up. I wrote about it recently.
But why only Fongsan?
Because I wrote about one of the TSP candidates that just announced.
Oh.
Yeah. So, anyway, yeah, but people should be.
What is Huang Jie going to run as this time?
Keep reading the site, folks, and go over there. She's running independent.
Okay.
Yeah, she ran MPP last time, but she left the party. So.
Yeah, I was wondering if she was going to join a new one or.
I think she's
got her own little base.
Yeah, she's just gonna ride out on her own base.
She'll join the Taiwan People's Party, like other people who form their own little base.
I'm interested to see where the Taiwan People's Party goes.
Nowhere. Well, if they claim that they're going to lower housing prices, they might go somewhere.
Well,
not deliver.
yeah, exactly, and then sell all those to mainlanders from Shanghai.
Yeah.
I saw. I think we talked about it last week, but I saw in some of the national polling they've overtaken the KMT, but that's only one poll that I saw. So we'll see if that holds.
What do you think about this Taipei mayor's race with
Jiang Wanan?
Yeah. So you've got
Jiang Wanan, Chen Shizhong.
So you got to give Chen Shizhong a little credit, but you also have to really question his motives when he's already talking about reopening.
It depends if he runs and what he's actually going to do in terms of lowering these quarantine periods.
Let's hold off this conversation until we know what he's going to do.
Yeah, I think it's got to get closer. It looks like he's probably going to run.
Oh, he's definitely going to run. I meant in terms of the quarantine times.
Yeah, the quarantine times are going to be interesting because they're doing. What I heard today is that they're doing a lot of testing with how much of a difference there is between the 10 and 14 day quarantines.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I think look at New Zealand and look at Hong Kong, and take a fucking guess.
Well, I mean, between 10 and 14, I could see 10 and 14 not having a big difference because Omicron seems to pass through the system quite quickly, and they're doing at least 3 PCR tests. No, yeah, I saw the eventual 3, and
that means
he admitted that at least 3% of cases would probably escape.
Well, I would say a lot more than 3%.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if 3% escape. It could easily multiply and then become unattainable.
From what I saw from Bloomberg, okay, Hong Kong had an infection rate throughout their population of probably less than 1% as of prior to Chinese New Year. And then, like Taiwan, and surprisingly Taiwan did not suffer, they took a very loose approach to this Chinese New Year. And now Bloomberg estimates that more than 50% of the Hong Kong population has been infected in the last 2 months. So to go from 0 to the entire fucking population
there was
that quickly is very possible.
Yesterday or the day before, there was 50,000 new cases.
Yeah, and that has a 7.3. I mean, you never know because there's so many people coming and going. Coming from China and fleeing to the UK. But, I mean, very quickly, yeah, it's going to overtake the entire population.
Yeah, it just spirals out of control. But this is the thing that has most upset me recently, is seeing people online make comments where they say, we're about to get back down to 0, and that's why we should open up. And
yeah, that's the logic.
I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? They're like, we didn't do all this so we couldn't open back up. I'm like, no.
You did it so that you would be safe.
Yeah, we did it so old people wouldn't die en masse, like they're doing in Hong Kong right now with 4,000 or 5,000 deaths a week. Yeah, that's why we're doing it. Not because, not to open back up. Who gives a fuck about opening back up? What is the point? I agree that they should open back up.
They don't have to pay so much to take a vacation.
I agree with people saying we should open back up job opportunities because they shut down a lot of the immigration. I think we should open that back up. But you still got to quarantine, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's what it is.
That's just the world we live in now. And if you don't like it, go to America and die.
Yeah.
Go to Russia.
Yeah. Go.
They don't have those rules.
Yeah, go somewhere where no one wears masks. Like America. Move to Austin, Texas.
Yeah, but you don't need to fuck it up for the rest of us. Like Taiwan is like one of the only safe places left in the world in terms of.
It's pretty much the only one, depending on how China handles this. Because
China's doing bad. They locked down Shenzhen. I thought
they locked down a number of cities, including Shenzhen. And I just saw a video before we came on air of their like CDC officials in like the white hazmat suits just beating the shit out of people on the street.
I wish they would do that to some people here.
I haven't like independently confirmed that video, so it's a Twitter video, so take that with somewhat of a grain of salt. But I've definitely seen numerous videos like that out of China, so it wouldn't surprise me at all.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating to watch, and it's also frustrating watching New Zealand being like their prime minister. I used to think that she was like a breath of fresh air, but now I just see her. She's delusional. I mean, they had the same thing in New Zealand. Basically, it was a very safe country, and they had. I mean, think a few months ago, the cases peaked up a little. They were having, I think, dozens to maybe 100 a day or something like that, which is not great, but it's not like the United States.
Yeah.
And basically, she's like, okay, we've had enough. The tourism industry needs to get back to business now. So, like, let's just let all the old people die. And they went up to like 25,000 cases plus a day. And yeah, all the hospitals are now overwhelmed, and the universities are closing. And she's like, New Zealand is safe and back in business. And it's just cringy to watch, like this delusion.
It's delusional. It's absolutely delusional. It's the same thing the U.S. is doing. Is saying it's over. Like we're done. We're done with it. And it's like no. 2,000 people are still dying every day. Like the trend is going slightly down.
Just like pretend that you don't see the 9/11 happening
again.
every day.
Yeah. Just pretend that the Twin Towers aren't collapsing every day. And the other thing is like we've been saying this for months now, but wait until we get the next variant. We're fucking due for one. They already have that.
They already have BA2.
BA2, but I'm talking about like a whole new variant where it's like completely like evades vaccines.
You mean like Omicron does?
We don't know that, Ari. We need to check the data, but we certainly don't know that it super protects it. Oh man, I saw the cringiest tweet today on Twitter. Someone was like, "Who else is 100% down to get their fourth vaccine when they start offering it?" I was like, "Oh my god, dude!
That's why Twitter's a nightmare. But yeah, I mean,
that's not the worst on Twitter. I mean, I get it. I get that people like. I gotta be careful about what I say here. I get that people want to do that because they've been told that that's the only way to protect. But really, the only way to ensure protection is to do quarantines and to do contact tracing and masking. Those are the things that we know work. With the new variants, there is still not enough data. I mean, people want to put out these observational studies, but it's just not. It's not enough hard science.
There is no double-blind, placebo-controlled study with the vaccines and the new variants. And to be honest, Pfizer refuses to conduct them because they know they're 100% certain that they would fail and they would be pulled from the market for efficacy against Omicron. Because
Ari is totally speculating right here. He's also totally right.
Then why wouldn't they just run the tests again?
I mean, I think there could be an argument made that they don't have to because they've been given the green light to do whatever they want. And
then why are we running studies in general?
I would say they're probably going to do that once they get these because they're creating they're creating variant-specific vaccines now. But
so they can sell more.
I also saw the CEO of Pfizer saying everyone needs to get their fourth vaccine, and they're willing to show that data.
Show what data?
They apparently did some sort of testing where they said that it proves.
We tested on our CEO. We gave him 35 vaccines and then put him in a room with somebody who had been infected with COVID 8 months ago, and he did not catch it.
He didn't get it, folks. He's fine. He's fine.
Yeah, I always love corporate-funded studies.
I'm all for getting vaccinated.
Freedom of choice, folks.
I've gotten vaccinated, but I don't think that there's breakthrough cases. Like it's just not arguable that like it stops the spread.
No,
which is with this whole argument from the beginning. They were like, stop the spread, stop the spread.
They're like, oh well, not stop the spread.
You can take your mask off. Try not to die. Maybe let's send less people to the hospital. Old people are dead. We're open back up. COVID's over, folks. That was like, and the whole time, there's just peaks and valleys, but nothing really changed Besides, everyone got infected with the original variant, and it started to go down. And then there was a new variant, and then everyone got infected with that. And it just 1 to 2% of the population dies every year. Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. Oh, fuck it. Oh. It's
I have one
it's
piece of
pretty
good
bad.
news.
All right, yeah, let's cheer this up.
Imran Khan is going to be pushed out of office.
You talked about this a little bit last time, or kind of speculated at it. Do you have hard evidence that he's going to be?
Bloomberg had a report today that said that basically people in the government, they're all reports. Like
I trust nothing that Bloomberg says.
Anyway, I mean the word is coming through. Like he's probably going to be pushed out of office, and good riddance. Good riddance.
Good riddance to him, but I hope that someone better replaces him, because if someone worse comes along, then that's not great.
I wanted to talk also about their neighbor, Modi. I think I've been seeing a lot of Indian IR people, international relations people, basically saying, oh, we can't let India get pulled into this new Cold War. Like, excuse me. The Ukraine-Russia conflict, this has nothing to do with the Cold War. This has everything to do with the international order being completely shattered by one country using its military force to invade another country to gain territory, or to annex a neighbor. This is basically a breakdown of the world order, and it shatters the UN Charter. So for you to be like, oh, we're not getting involved in this, it's not acceptable. This is not the U.S. versus Russia. This is the entire fucking foundation of the UN and the world order versus Russia, versus Putin, versus one fucking man. And if you can't man up because of whatever gas prices or something like that, then maybe you don't deserve to have territorial integrity either. Next time there's a conflict you have with Pakistan or China, you can't have it both ways.
Well, India is supposed to be doing a meeting with China this week, I believe.
They had a meeting with Japan, right now, and hopefully talk some sense into that old fucking.
I mean, he's an idiot.
He is an idiot, but anyone who also buys this, that India or any other mega power can just kind of stand by the sidelines and not get involved in what they delusionally believe is a Western-Eastern conflict is out of their fucking mind.
I mean, drawing the East-West parallel, I think is not
pile
helpful.
of horse shit.
Well, yeah, it also doesn't make sense, because what you just said, Japan and South Korea and Taiwan, it's nonsensical. But I mean, this is what always happens, is because, I mean, I say this quite often. We have monkey brains. Like it's easy for us to put things in nice, neat little boxes in these monoliths or these dichotomies, but that's not how it works. Like, there's nuance in the world.
I would say what this is Russia. India wants to keep buying cheap fucking oil from Russia, and that's basically the gist of it. I think that the entire world has lost its fucking mind and just been like, yes, we care about the world order, but gas prices will always be more expensive, and we will let the worth shatter before we ever let gas hit $5 a gallon.
What I hope is that democratic countries start to get together and say, like, let's
It's been 3 weeks.
Well, I mean, it's been 3 weeks. Like, to be fair, like, in terms of international relations, that's a very, very short period of time.
In terms of every single day, Ukrainian people, civilians dying and being shelled in an invasion that by the way, the West expected the country would fall in hours.
2 days at most, yeah.
What I read is for the reports that I saw, was that if they attacked Kiev, if their goal was to take Kiev, then it would fall within hours.
I saw 24 to 72, but
so yeah, it's slow in terms of international relations. It's not slow in responding to a threat to the global world order.
Yeah, but like redrawing the lines of
you don't need to redraw the lines. Just sanction them.
chains.
Just cut off their oil.
Yeah, I mean that I tend to agree with, but you still have to worry about, like,
oh, do
where,
you?
where are
Do you
people? Where are people? I mean, where are people going to get oil and things like that? I mean, I think these are valid things to actually worry about.
We have gas shortages all the fucking time. We have power outages. Funding genocide is not an option. Like, I don't understand.
I mean, I agree with you. I'm just saying, like, when you're thinking about these world leaders, they're going to be slow to react to anything that might.
Yeah, they're willing to let Ukraine fall before they affect gas. That's what it comes down to.
You're right. No, you're right. Yeah.
And so I just want to put it in perspective. Like, if the West loves patting itself on the back on their historic unity and putting these crippling sanctions. Okay, let me give you some statistics.
the Russian ruble has bounced back from these quote unquote historical fucking sanctions. It's down 40%. Okay, the Turkish lira was falling like 50% a month last year.
Yeah.
And there was no war going on there. So give me a fucking break. 40% is bad, but that's not a currency collapse, first of all. And we'll see if they default, because there's a lot of talk that they will default, and that might cause a further collapse. Number two, their financial sector. We're like, oh yeah, we've really knocked out their financial. No. 70% of the banks, and we took their biggest banks, 30% of them, and we said they're off limits. We can't touch them because we want to save some ammo for what? What the fuck are you saving that 30% for?
Well, they're saving it for the fact that they want to still make money off them. That's why they didn't. That's why they didn't sanction all the oligarchs. And the oligarchs closest to Putin were not sanctioned, at least not fully. Yes. They were not sanctioned, at least fully.
So stop fucking patting yourselves on
No,
that.
yeah,
And the most
absolutely.
important
Yeah.
was full oil. You don't even need to use the word embargo. Sanction every drop of oil. Any country who buys oil will have massive economic sanctions put against them. And that will cut off the fucking floodgates. Russia's economy will be fucked. Like, maybe it won't happen this year. Maybe it won't even happen, in the next couple months. But that economy will falter and die if they don't have oil export revenues very, very quickly within the short term. And there's going to be an oligarch that puts a bullet in his head sooner or later, especially if you put that pressure. If you put 70% pressure, I'm sorry, but that's not enough. There are still holes. So people just go to one bank, move all their fucking money to the other bank that still can interact with the rest of the world.
That's the other thing, is that there's still a number of holdout countries, or at least a handful.
Not in Russia, but I'm saying if you just at least hit all the Russian banks, at least hit all the oligarchs, hit the oil, and stop. And I know Taiwan has stopped chip exports to Ukraine, but I'm sorry, to Russia, but all chips and all tech needs to be cut off. That will strangle it. The money will not be able to leave the country. They're going to be trying to haul out gold bars, for fuck's sake. Russia is finished if you do that. And they're just like,
well, they're still flying out. I mean, the oligarchs are flying out on jets to Saudi right now. There was flight pass out.
And and
we,
by
we
the
also
way,
should fucking stop doing any business with Saudi. We should have
we should fucking sanction Saudi for them basically telling us to go fuck themselves on this.
Well, how about for killing a fucking American journalist and then cutting him up in a fucking embassy, like that right there?
Yeah,
we don't. I mean, you said it last week. We don't work with fucking dictators. Like, you're not going to give your people freedom. We're not going to work with you. Like,
I agree.
It's fucking preposterous.
I agree.
Man.
And the fact that we're turning to them, we're being like,
Putin bad, but Mohammed bin Salman and what's his name? Nicolas Maduro good. No, fuck that shit. They're all fucking autocrats.
And
let's push for regime change in all those shithole countries, and let's reform the United States while we're at it.
Well, the United States is desperately in need of reform.
I don't want to hear whataboutism.
Well, I think that in Saudi it's been a bad thing for a long time, and yet we're still largely funding their war in Yemen. The other thing that I've heard is, and we've talked about this before in other conflicts, is basically that people are saying, well, if we don't sell weapons to Saudi, they're just going to buy them from somewhere else, and it's like,
they can buy Russian second-tier shitty S-400s.
Here's the other thing: is that if they buy them from Russia, they have to totally retrofit all of their equipment. They can't mix and match. This is not a fucking Lego set where you just plug and play all these fucking different pieces. Like, they have completely different systems. That's why when they were talking about selling jets to Ukraine, we couldn't just sell them American F-16s. Like, they don't know how to fucking fly them.
You could train them, but
you could train them, but again, this takes time, and it's something that they probably don't want to do.
Yeah, you're right. The United States does not want to help Ukraine
because
they'd rather watch it fall and then get to play the "I told you so" thing, and then be like, now we have to really revamp NATO.
We really want to get back to our Wordle puzzles.
Oh.
People just want to check out. They don't want to do anything.
Well, then check out. Just fucking get COVID and die, and just leave the rest of the civilized world to deal with the real shit. If you want to play World and die of COVID at home, that's your prerogative. But don't vote then. Don't pretend like you understand the world.
I think
stay at home.
I think a lot of people don't, and I hope that people are trying. And I get it is there's a lot of shit going on. But
If it's too complex for you, then you probably shouldn't be voting. I'm being honest.
yeah, I don't know. The thing is also, I think when you're talking about America, it matters what the fuck was that?
Cats.
I think it matters, but it doesn't matter a ton.
What doesn't matter a ton?
Voting for either of the two parties in America. There's a difference. I get angry at both sides of this argument where they say like there's no difference at all, because there clearly is. But people that say that there's a huge difference and one is yes, exactly.
Ranked choice voting.
You're gonna censor that.
Yeah, I'm gonna censor the cats having sex.
Mimi, I hope you're upstairs behaving.
She's upstairs.
You're definitely gonna have to censor this whole line.
What else is going on,
Your
man?
parents would be ashamed of that.
They would be so disgusted.
Let me see if I have any other notes. I think I got a lot of it. So insane. I think the Iran deal is kind of fucked. I mean, I think that Saudi needs to come to the table on this, but so does Israel and the UAE, like all these militarily powerful countries in the region.
I hope it's not. I hope it's not.
It is.
Do you think so?
Yeah, and I think there's probably going to be an Israeli airstrike fairly soon.
It's gonna be bad. That's not a good situation.
Well, Ukraine could just stop trying to develop nuclear weapons for the fuck of it, but
Ukraine?
yeah. Iran, sorry.
Well, I don't know that they're doing it for the fuck of it. I think
They're doing
part
it
of-
so they can end the world, as
Well-
the Ayatollah has said.
well, okay.
I would say that's for the fuck of it.
I don't know if that's the reason. I think
I mean,
probably
that's-
more. I think
That's what he says.
yeah, but people say a lot of rhetorical things. I think probably the bigger part of it is that they think they can get a better bargaining chip if they start to develop them.
You think that
and
they-
then if they
wait,
don't,
wait.
here's the thing. If the U.S. doesn't come to the table and give them a deal that they want, then they'll have nuclear weapons, and then no one can touch them.
You know that before all of this, there weren't sanctions on them, right? Like, it's not like the sanctions just came out of nowhere. They decided first that they wanted to develop nuclear weapons
I agree,
to
yeah.
destroy the world.
Yeah, I know. Well, I don't know that it was to destroy the world. I don't think most countries develop nuclear weapons to destroy the world. That might be something they say. Again,
That's the,
I think
let's
that's,
say that's the only
I think that's-
theocratic country in the world that's trying to develop nuclear.
I would say North Korea is also a theocratic country.
Wow. That's stretching the term.
I mean, they worship Kim Jong Un as a god. So I don't.
The meaning of their God, their meaning of God is different than. It's not. I would say it's not the same.
I think
It's
that's. I
totalitarian.
think that's a distinction without a difference.
I don't because I think
I do. But I okay. Go ahead.
the North Korean complex, the Kim complex, revolves around this technically the Socialist Party of North Korea, and basically to the benefit of North Koreans. They have no delusions about like this magical afterlife.
Well, I don't know if it has the benefit of North Koreans. You're saying
The Workers' Party does.
in their
Yeah, and their
religion.
rhetoric and their understanding of the state and its purpose and their purpose. There's no like afterlife fantasy where you destroy the world and then you're going to have like an eternal heaven because you killed all these people who are different than you. That's not like there's no fetishizing of global destruction that you could see in
I don't know. I would disagree with you. And you look at propaganda of like destroying the horrible capitalists. I don't know.
Yeah, in terms of the present term, but not in terms of annihilating the entire world, which you might have in a classical religion with these apocalyptic visions.
Well, I would say not in terms of a classical religion. I would say in terms of a neo-religion that has been warped far beyond the borders of its original context.
I don't know. I mean,
Because I mean, suicide bombing was like not even like the idea of committing suicide and going to heaven for it is a very, very modern thing. They had to like basically they had to twist around. That came around probably like what
You're talking about
what
in
years
Islam,
ago?
but I'm saying
40, 50 years ago.
you're talking about in Islam, but I'm talking about like
Yeah,
culturally
because that's
across
that's the
world.
country that you're talking about. That's an Islamic country in Iran.
I have no idea. I don't really know Islamic.
you don't know if
history
you
that
don't know
well.
if Iran is Islamic. I'm just
I don't know
kidding. I'm just
I don't know
kidding.
Islamic history very well. I would say it's also because there's a lot. Yeah.
There were things like crusades, granted, but that's not killing yourself. I mean, if you annihilate yourself in a nuclear war,
I don't know, because giving yourself up, like sacrificing yourself for your fellow people in like a struggle, it's like pretty historical.
yes, sacrificing yourself, but not blowing yourself up.
Is that for me?
It's your new dress. Ari's pretty pink new dress.
Nice. I'm excited. Let's talk about trucks again.
I think that taking a dictator at their word that they're going to blow up the whole world is
I think allowing
I
a
think it's
dictator to
insane.
get the fact that a single person has those codes is the most frightening thing. I think
it's frightening that
Kim
anyone
Jong-
has nuclear weapons, honestly. But
I
I
think
agree
in a
with you that
democratic state-
it's much more frightening when an autocrat has it. I agree.
I
with
think
you.
Russia right now is nearly as frightening as North Korea.
Well, it's a fucking autocratic state. I would say Russia is more because I think North Korea doesn't have any threats to its power, whereas Russia definitely does.
Well, it's not even about North Korean power. It's like the autocrat's power. Kim Jong Un versus Putin. You're
That's what I mean.
okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about their power in the
Not
world.
like their global power. Yeah, not like their. I think Putin's to some degree is the global power in the world because that threatens his power at home. But ultimately, it boils down to: is he going to continue to live the lavish life of luxury that he has, and that basically relies on the fact that Russians are going to have some modicum of at least they're going to have rice in their bowls at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think the economy. I mean, it's going to be hard getting Russians used to. I shouldn't say this. I feel like, and the media's been presenting this for a while, that Russia is going to become like North Korea, this isolated, poor, undeveloped place. But if we only half-ass the sanctions like we are right now, I think there's a reasonable chance that they'll just get a bunch of bribes from China and recover. They'll have shortages and it will be very difficult for them, but it's not going to be as bad as they've been pushing that it will be for all this time if we don't actually crack down on that last 30% of the financial institutions and embargo, let's say, sanction the export of all Russian oil.
Yeah, I probably tend to agree. I mean, I don't know. We'll see how all that goes. They need to certainly crack down on all these fucking oligarchs, and
Yes,
not to mention
totally agree.
financial institutions inside of Europe, like these Swiss banks and Deutsche Bank.
Yeah, but they haven't even. The whole point is they haven't even sanctioned all the Russian banks. Why would they start sanctioning European banks?
I think do both at the same time.
Yeah,
honestly.
I mean, I totally agree.
But yeah,
Let's close
I
the
get your
loophole.
point. Yeah. The only loophole I believe in is
You're just making work for yourself.
I don't mind when I do it because I know it's coming.
There you go again.
I'm coming.
I can't think of anything else. I wrote a couple articles this week. Not a couple, more than a couple, which I would recommend everyone go and read.
There's been a lot of articles. Yeah, you guys, everyone go to FreeChinaPost.com.
This represents a change of stance. So basically, through Guanta, which is a Chinese media site,
Mm-hmm.
and basically nothing gets published in China without approval and making sure that it follows basically party line.
Yeah.
And they essentially said that if the United States were to intervene in an invasion of Taiwan, that they would use nuclear weapons in Taiwan. So they would nuke Taiwan to destroy it if the United States intervened.
Oh yeah.
Which is
I
a
know.
really preposterous thing, claiming that they want to reunify the country and that Taiwanese people are their brothers. But yet,
Tongbaomen.
yeah,
Tongbaomen, you're our brothers, but
enjoy the fallout.
if the U.S. comes in, we're gonna
turn your country into a big glass sheet.
Yeah, I thought that was a really shocking development, and it's it goes against, because for a long time they've had a no first use policy for nuclear weapons. So to kind of, and they explicitly, I should say this journalist did, but it's sanctioned by the party if it's allowed to be published, that if they're backtracking on that, this represents a really dangerous situation for global nuclear proliferation. So
Totally.
yeah.
That's upsetting.
It's very upsetting, and there's been a lot of stuff I've seen in the international news, but also in Taiwan, about the upping of compulsory military service. I don't know if you've seen.
Yeah, they're
been
talking
all
about
over the
they're
news
talking about
lately.
upping it to a year, upping it. I guess re-upping it to a year because it used to be 2 years before. They're also talking a lot about increasing and I might have talked about this before, but increasing the training for like National Guard.
I've also seen, very interestingly, not only are most Taiwanese people in favor of increasing it, especially not children, but people who no longer have to serve, but they also are in favor of of compulsory service for women, which would be
I saw that too. There was the only poll I saw on that though was an unscientific online poll, and it was mostly from people in the north, and it was mostly men. It was like 70% men that were
rats.
MRA boy.
If those cats don't start having if those cats don't stop having sex soon, I'm gonna fucking kill them. And of course, by that I mean I'm gonna go over there and say, stop it right now, because I would never harm an animal.
You should try feeding them Xiaohu's bird.
That sounds dirty. I was talking about Taiwan becoming a neoliberal hellscape earlier, and I would like to talk about this article that I read.
Okay.
It's about how they are drastically, Taipei specifically, the worst city in all of Taiwan, is hiking. This is the the title of the article. Taipei hikes child birth subsidies in bid to spur population growth. Do you know how much they hike them?
Probably like $100.
Yeah, 5,000 NT. 5,000
A
NT.
month or
Starting here, I'll read what it says. Starting Thursday, the 5,000 NT will be added to the current one-time subsidy of $20,000 for a second child and $25,000 for a third baby, in accordance with a newly amended regulation of the city government. The Taipei Department of Civil Affairs said.
So, yeah, one time.
Brave, yeah, very brave.
$170.
Yeah, $175.16 is what that equals out to.
You could use that to buy like one carton of reusable diapers.
Yeah, I can buy a couple gallons of milk with that, or I can pay about 5% of my Taipei rent.
Oh yeah. For a family, yeah.
It's preposterous. It's idiotic, and then they continue to complain about, why is no one having babies? It must be because people are. It's the same argument that I've heard in America. Is I've heard these people
So much
say,
social media.
People are getting married too late. Why are people not getting married at 16 anymore? And it's like, it's not about people not being able to get married.
Well, it is
it's
part
about
of that.
Well, part of
In
the reason that
Taiwan
people aren't getting
particularly.
married is because they have shit salaries, so they can't pay for weddings. They can't get a fucking house, so they feel like they can't like have
Yeah,
their
yeah, I
own
agree
place.
with you, but it's all they're missing
connected.
they're missing the cause of
Yes.
them getting married late, which is low financial stability. In general.
I still think, in generally speaking, and this has changed greatly. I mean, over time, like throughout history, as life expectancy extends, people generally get married a little bit later. Like, we've gone from getting married
but
at
it's
like
not
12
extending any
and
longer.
15.
I think it probably in global
it's
terms.
kind of flattened out, but
I would say it's
but
probably going to start to
wages-
shrink because of COVID, and
well,
I haven't seen-
wages are also shrinking, though. Is I think the bigger factor.
That's
in
true.
it.
I just want to say, since COVID started, I haven't seen any data on the life expectancy now, but I would venture a guess that it's going to take a pretty serious hit, and it's going to continue to take a hit for the immediate future as we give up on it, and as we
Yeah.
give up on developing effective vaccines.
Well, and doing and taking measures that we know that work, like wearing fucking masks
Yeah,
and
or
social distancing
quarantining.
and quarantining. Yeah.
So yeah, we can kiss that goodbye. But yeah, wages, of course.
People, I just don't think. I mean, people don't care. This is the thing: is they cared at the beginning, but people get bored very quickly, and I think they kind of always have.
If
Like,
people would just obey the fucking rules, all the rules put together, quarantining, masks, testing, all this stuff. If the entire world would obey it for like 3 months, it would be gone.
I would say not even, especially with Omicron.
I'm
You
just saying
could-
3
you could-
months because give it a very safe, conservative term.
I agree. No, I agree.
And
with
they're
you.
like, nope,
yeah, we can't do it.
we can't do it. Vacations
can't.
are way too important, just like
Yeah,
gas
yeah.
prices.
As
Let
if
the world burn.
As if anyone's taking vacations anymore, because
Lots of Americans are, man. My dad tells me all the time, all his friends are like, why are you being so crazy? Why won't you just take your mask off and come dine in a restaurant with us?
yeah, why don't you just roll the dice with the loss of 10% of your brain cells potentially? I did see a very
Learn to live again.
die with COVID. Learn to die with COVID. That's what I
Or
always say.
diabetes or mental retardation, all of which are now clinically linked to COVID.
That I will say that
I'll send you the data. The mental retardation and diabetes are both linked to.
What do you mean by that? Like, I mean, a decrease in IQ, maybe.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't. Number one, I wouldn't use the phrase mental retardation anyway. It's a little passé. But
Is it? That's a medical term.
I would say, like,
It means the slowing of mental capacity.
I know what you mean, but I would just say reduction of like mental faculties. But anyway, I don't think that's the word that they use anymore. But
Who's they? So
you said it's a medical term. I don't.
okay,
think
so if
that's what they
somebody
use.
has so like if somebody's ineligible to join the military because they have an IQ less than 70, what would they say? They don't say mentally retarded. What do they say?
They definitely don't say mentally retarded
What do
anymore.
are you sure? I'm pretty sure they still say that.
Ch-
That's the definition of. I mean, that's a clinical term. It's not just like an arbitrary slur.
I mean, I know what you mean because growing up, that's also what I used. But I would say it's probably mentally deficient now.
I feel like that is. No,
I
this
mean-
is a clinical term, man. Now it looks like they've changed it. Now they call it
Yeah.
intellectual disability,
There you go.
retardation. But
I know.
they changed it in 2013 in the Federal Register.
Right. That's what I was saying. I know you're not like using it to, like. I'm just saying. Yeah.
Let's see what.
Anyway,
they said.
I
Here's mental
speaking
disorder.
speaking of reducing people's IQ, which I have to say, first of all, IQ is not a good measure, but when IQ is used against IQ, like when you flat out compare IQ to IQ, it can be, obviously it's much more of a useful measurement. There was stuff recently, I think we talked about this off pod, that is ridiculous. I've never heard them go at it like this for so long.
They're fighting. You want to go intervene?
All right, we'll take a break, folks, and then I'm going to talk about how things reduce your
I
IQ.
have a mask, and there's a bunch of people sitting out there. Fine, you can censor what I said out.
Do you
Just
want me
say
to?
intellectual disability, sure. So I don't want anyone to get offended. I didn't know that it's been amended in the Federal Registry. Okay.
I obviously didn't think you were like trying to use it in a mean way, and that's
I thought that it was an acceptable term still. I know
Yeah.
that there's some negative connotation, but I thought that using it in the proper sense was acceptable, like in a clinical sense, like an objective sense, not as an insult.
I mean, if I hear someone say that like when we're having a conversation, I wouldn't think much of it, but I think that's also because I'm raised with it. But I think, especially probably some younger people would probably like be a little bit,
the Federal Registry shift.
or at least coming to age afterwards.
Jesus,
But what I was gonna say, another
Why
thing.
would you say that?
Another thing that I didn't mean it like that. I meant like coming into their like
I know
real
exactly what
cognition.
you meant. I'm just giving you shit.
You know how we do at FC.
You have a lot to
I'm
censor.
giving
now.
myself a lot of work. So there was a recent thing that I think we talked about off pod, like I was saying, is that leaded gasoline reduced the IQ of 170 million Americans. There was a recent study that showed that. That's insane,
Pretty
man.
insane. What's
That's-
more insane is that they still said like leaded gasoline in a lot of countries.
Well, no. It officially ended last year. Last year. The last country stopped selling leaded gasoline.
Which country was the last one? Russia.
I think I wrote an article about it, but it's been so long.
Yeah, I seem to remember reading it, but it's kind of slipped out of my mind. It's been a rough year, guys.
It's been pretty rough. Algeria was the last country, and they ended it, August 30th, 2021.
I heard recently, was it about Algeria? They had an election, and Algeria or Tunisia? One of those North African states. I can't remember. I'm going to look it up and get back to everyone, because I can't remember the details. But there was one North African state that had an election fairly recently, and they were saying the president was just consolidating power and erasing all the gains of the Arab Spring. I thought it was Algeria, but I feel like Algeria did not have an Arab Spring. I know Tunisia did, but yeah, it's possible it's Tunisia I'm talking about. But anyways, irrelevant.
Racist.
How is that racist?
I'm just kidding.
Teacher Jordan is a racist.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking about. 'Cause the
Teacher
kids-
Jordan loves to say racist things in class.
Yeah, the kids fucking said that shit to me today.
Today.
I was like talking to them
Teacher
about
Jordan is a baboon.
yeah. I was talking to them about the messed up like we were talking about the
Ukraine's
the,
not a country.
we were talking about the triangle trade, and I was like, like the slave trade was like really bad, and they're like racist. And I'm like, yes, the slave trade was racist, and they're like, you're racist for talking about it. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like the most preposterous nonsense. It's like so ridiculous.
They know how to get you.
They know what makes me angry is just saying like
Being called racist.
nonsensical stuff. Yeah, and calling stuff racist. Whereas like some of those kids will like make like very racist. They'll say very racist things about like Hakka people.
I'm glad I don't teach children very much anymore.
Children are horrible. This is the thing when people say like,
And you wonder why the birth rate's so low.
well, and people talk about like children are beautiful, like intellectual creatures. I learned
They're not
the thing that gets me the most is when I see teachers say I learn more from my students than like my students teach me more than I teach them. I'm like, you're a shitty teacher. You're a bad teacher.
Well,
I get that. It's
really good
it's like it's like a cliche. Like I get it. Yeah, sometimes your kids do teach you something. Like, oh yeah, I didn't think about it that way because you're like a naive little fuck that like taught me some interesting thing. But they shouldn't teach you more than you teach them. You should be every day giving them information they've never heard in their entire lives.
Philosophical though. It's saying that they challenge your ideas and your beliefs and make you rethink and research and learn. That's what I'm just defending it.
Oh, listen to this.
Fine, let's
fucking-
talk about trucks again.
Listen to this hippie bohemian piece of shit. Unbelievable, Ari. All right, let's talk about Trump. Go ahead.
Trucks. That's what I said, not Trump. I don't have anything else.
I thought you wanted to talk about Trump.
No, I
Yeah.
wanted to talk about trucks.
What about him? I love when they go vroom vroom.
Good night, folks.
All right. We'll be back with y'all soon. Hopefully you have some interviews soon. Also,
I
go
have
read.
an interview. I'll edit it. I'll try and edit it myself with Ahmed. Talking the Turkish scholar talking about the situation in Ukraine and Turkey's role, which has been really interesting
Yeah.
as a NATO member, but also as probably one of the most pro-Russian NATO members,
Yep.
and also the supplier of probably the entire drone armada
Yeah.
of Ukraine, the Bayraktars.
Yeah. I'm fascinated to hear that. All right. So stay tuned for that on the podcast feed, obviously, and then be checking out the website every day. There's numerous new articles, and they're pretty quick reads, and you can learn like a lot of stuff pretty quickly because
Yeah, most of them are short. Oh, one more.
most of them are short and like packed with information, and then every once in a while there's a nice opinion piece that'll make you smile.
Taiwan hiked up interest rates,
Yeah, I saw that.
0.25%.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, it's gonna affect housing prices. It's not.
Housing prices are already unavoidable.
No. The idea is that it might decrease the demand for them because 0.25% is like gonna be the real breaking point for a lot of people buying unaffordable houses in Taiwan.
I don't know. Before it was like $12 million. Now it's 11.76. Oh, I guess I can't sell now. Yeah, it's preposterous. This catering, I mean, it makes sense. The media always caters to rich people because it's run and funded by rich people. But that's why you got to turn that mainstream media nonsense off. But
I did.
It's
I titled
frustrating.
the article "Taiwan announces enormous interest rate hike." I think the United States, a basis point is the same. I guess it's the largest. I think it's the largest increase in like more than 10 years. So in that sense, it's enormous, but it's still, tiny.
As I always say, the economy is not a good metric for how people are doing in a country. Two,
Oh, one more thing.
that's basically what I want to say. I think people need to stop paying attention to the economy so much, and it really frustrates me when I see people who I know don't have any fucking money just talk about the economy all the time.
Well,
It
what about
stonks.
the economy?
What do you think about the stocks
And the fact that Nike is up 0.4% today, it's really going to affect me. It's like, do you own any stocks? Well, no, but I've thought about investing in a mutual fund. It's just like, this is like you're literally wasting your time when you could be writing to your congressman, telling them that if they don't vote to create Medicare for all in your country, or I guess in Taiwan, maybe like I don't know, some sort of monthly based payment system to all the people making less than 600,000 NT a month.
You mean a UBI? Well, not UBI.
If you're not willing to write instead of worrying about the stonk market, why don't you write your representative and tell them if they don't create a UBI that you're gonna and by that I mean you're gonna be very angry and you won't vote for them anymore. That's what I meant.
I've got one more quick thing, which is that polling recently suggested that the majority of Taiwanese people think that without the United States that Taiwan would not be able to defend itself, but a larger majority are also willing to
defend it either way.
To defend it either way, yeah.
I read that article.
Thanks for reading my
That's
articles.
heartening.
It is heartening, yeah.
Yeah. And I hope that people continue to enroll in these practices. I think that
Enroll in what?
enroll in these sorts of like National Guard services and also like hopefully sign up for the military. I also think that they should increase benefits to the military. Partially one because a lot of the higher up offices, like officers, I should say, in the military are controlled by the KMT, and there are worries about the fact that they might just kind of flip to CCP if they try to do some sort of invasion. I don't know how much I believe that, but I think it does worry me a little bit. The other thing is that I think you made a really good point on the last podcast that we did, is that Taiwan desperately needs a domestic arms manufacturer.
Yeah.
That is pumping out. I think ammo is one of the biggest things, but also
Agreed.
making their own domestic weapons. Like they absolutely should just be creating.
Anti-vehicle weapons. They need to like start yesterday on like creating a massive program and just stockpile
also
anti-vehicle weapons.
Totally agree. And also the other thing is that
anti-aircraft,
and also the United States and Israel should be selling Taiwan the Iron Dome 10 years ago.
Yeah.
They should have
I agree with that.
the Iron Dome or something comparable.
Well,
or
the
better.
Iron Dome is designed for rockets, not for like ballistic missiles, which is what China's threat. It's not the same thing. Ballistic, even the United States. I mean, if the numbers are to be believed and are to be true, and those missiles actually fire, if they're actually capable of firing, I should say, even the United States' like missile defenses shield couldn't stop like thousands of missiles flying at the same time.
Right. It depends how they do it, but still, it could offer some protection. The other thing is that they should be revamping and expanding their bunker system for civilians, because unlike Ukraine, where there is land borders with places like Poland, there are no land borders in Taiwan. People are going. The only place that they could theoretically even swim, if they're in a place like Matsu, is China.
Yeah.
People on the mainland of Taiwan are swimming nowhere. They're either dying or they're being taken captive.
I mean, they could sail out.
On what fucking boat? Like
There are a lot of boats.
There are some boats, but again, those could also be sunk by the Chinese military.
Yeah, they probably would be.
So, my point being that they need to drastically increase their defensive
I
capabilities.
think the other thing is to prevent that military collapse. I think that Tsai Ing-wen needs to make 100% clear that she wouldn't just cut and run, and that there needs to be a strong civilian defense. That if, let's say, like a couple top generals flipped, that basically the civilian defense would lynch them in the streets for betraying the country,
Right.
and they know that they would get lynched in the streets,
Right.
so that they don't have any temptation in their fucking mind to flip.
I think those opinion polls help with that, but yeah, I also agree that people need to be
If there's like
much
an
better
armed
trained in
civilian
arms,
corps
arms,
that will hold the military officers who betray the country accountable, yeah, then there'll be a lot less incentive for them
What-
to.
Not to extend this too far, but how far do you think that America should extend their red line in terms of saying like
In Ukraine, you mean?
no in terms of China doing some sort of invasion? Because basically America for anyone that doesn't know, I know you know this, but like, why is someone driving that fast through our idiot, fucking idiot? I know you know this, but America takes this stance of ambiguity.
Yeah, well, that's
as
to prevent like
more
DPP
Chinese
extremists.
aggression, right?
No, it's prevent DPP extremists from declaring independence, which they think would foment.
I think it's also to prevent some foment from China as well. I think it's both.
I understand what you're saying. I haven't heard that argument being given as a valid reason though, but I think
It might not be, but that's the feeling that I get.
I think that's a preposterous idea because the rhetorical support of the United States is nothing compared to the Chinese idea that the United States might intervene. Like, if there was an explicit statement from the United States that they would intervene, then, I mean, it would be over. Like, they just simply wouldn't invade, at least until they were 100% sure that they could finish it.
But that kind of contradicts what you just said, because you said that it makes. Why would America be afraid of Taiwan declaring independence, which would benefit the United States, if that would mean that for sure China wouldn't invade?
Because the United States has taken the stance that they don't want this issue. They don't want to destroy their relationship with China either. So for that reason, they don't want to do anything that would encourage the Taiwanese government to get too confident in the United States' willingness to support them in any military conflict, and therefore prematurely declare independence,
I get
which
that.
would instigate a conflict. That's
I
what
get
they said.
I get that argument.
That's what they've
but
said.
I don't think that that's true.
I don't know. That's what they
because
said.
China
Yeah.
cannot operate without the United States. Or I guess it could operate without the United States. It couldn't operate outside of, like, for instance, if China received the sanctions that Russia has already received, they would be fucked. They would be much more fucked than Russia is right now.
Why? Why do you say that?
Because they are much more dependent on the international order than Russia is. Russia requires a lot of oil, but I think in general, China requires much more and
I kinda
much more
disagree.
sanctionable goods.
Chinese people
really?
travel less. Chinese
Oh, do you think so?
than
I don't know.
Russians. I think on average, it's hard to say, but
I wonder about that.
it's during COVID in the last 2 years, for sure.
During COVID,
For sure, they travel less.
during COVID, I could agree
But that's in
because
the-
China has a much more strict quarantine.
That's the
policies.
recent memory. So they travel less, number one. Number two, China manufactures basically everything that the world needs. The only thing that they don't have is a steady supply of oil, which they could easily get from Russia if there were an invasion.
That's what I'm saying, though, is that if people said, well, we don't need to get these plastic goods, because most of them are, you could say clothes and stuff, but even a lot of that, but especially the technological goods are moving out of China.
Some of them are, but they manufacture enough.
They manufacture a lot, but
It's not like Russia. Russia is going to have a shortage of cell phones. Russia's going to have a shortage of cars.
the important thing is that you get the chips. The chips are the much more difficult thing to make. It's not like you can set it up overnight, but you could set up a place to manufacture, because again, a lot of these stuff is like all of the intellectual property is outside of China, and you could set up someone to. Now, one thing that would be hard is some of these like rare earth minerals, but in terms of like manufacturing, you could set that up in any like Southeast Asian country. You could set it up in the
We're
fucking
talking-
United States.
But you're making the reverse argument. I'm saying that China is self-sufficient.
They might be self-sufficient, but their economy would fucking plummet.
Yeah, in terms of international trade, but more and more their economy is relying on the domestic sector anyways. It would plummet probably as much as Russia's is about to.
I think it would plummet more. They make so much money off of all the stuff they produce and this cheap plastic shit that they sell the rest of the world.
The
And I also think that because, sorry to cut you off, but I think Russians have kind of dealt with this for a while. This kind of like depression, economic depression. Chinese people have been on the rise for a long time. If you suddenly plummeted the Chinese middle class into abject poverty, or at least like lower class again, you would have very big problems, I think, in the streets.
Maybe, but on the other hand, they've also been pushing that Taiwan is an intrinsic part of China, and they're willing to end the world for it for the last fucking 70 years.
I think similarly to the Ukraine issue, I think
No.
I think less so. But I think a lot of Chinese people, they want Taiwan, but they're not willing to give up their economic prosperity for
I
it.
tend to agree with you, but the governments are really good at basically pushing the propaganda to like.
For sure. And China has even more of a well, Russia is similar now, but China has a stranglehold on its media market. But that doesn't
much
matter
stronger
if
than
you
Russia,
can
actually.
for sure. No, absolutely. But that doesn't mean that you can just like drop your salary in half and make the people say, "Ah, this is no big deal."
It's not that it's no big deal. They frame it as an existential war against the enemies of the state who wish to break it apart.
I mean, Russia's doing the same thing, and it's
And
not
there's-
really working.
I mean, I've seen that it
For
is
some people,
working.
it is. For some people, it is, but I don't know that it's working overall.
I don't think there's any data, to be honest. I've seen 70% in support, but even that's like, it's hard to know how accurate that is. 70% in support means
That's the
most
other
of
thing is
Russians still support it.
Yeah, but I don't think. I mean, just like the voting numbers, you're not getting anything solid.
I agree, but we don't have any real numbers.
True.
in that
No,
case.
I agree with you. I'm just saying that's my feeling. I'm not saying that this is based on like.
So I feel like China
This-
would have even better results. So yeah, the economic
I don't
decrease
know.
would probably be higher. I think that they would be more willing to take that hit.
The Chinese government, or the Chinese people.
Chinese people. Well, the Chinese government doesn't fucking care.
Yeah, I tend to agree with the government. I don't know about the people. That's where I wonder. I'm not saying I know that. Obviously, I don't know this. This is just my speculation, but that's the way I feel about it. I don't know. It's just a little thought
I think
experiment.
China.
I wanna have.
I tend to agree that China right now is more stability focused than Vladimir Putin, the single man, is.
Right.
And for that reason, won't do anything rash. Especially watching how badly this has gone for Russia, watching how incompetent they've been, and watching how resilient people will push back. Maybe those results, even if those leaks that they were going to stage an invasion and fallout were true, it's definitely not happening now.
That was another thing that I wanted to talk about was that leak, the supposed leak from Russian intelligence.
Watching the costs, because I think the whole world, they watched Crimea, they watched Afghanistan, just
Yeah.
watching that. There's no way it's going to happen, at least short term.
I tend to agree. I didn't even think it would happen short term before.
Neither did I, but that's the problem when you have a single crazy leader.
Yeah, I think you
China's more consensus based.
Yeah, I was going to say, you kind of mentioned it earlier, but I think that China, while it is very much like the party of Xi Jinping, it's not, to say that it's like a one-man state like North Korea or Russia is not a full picture.
No, it's not. It's not really accurate.
Because they actually do have, I mean, it's a one-party state, and that's fucked, but it is a party. It's not a one-man
Although he has
dictatorship.
consolidated a significant amount of power.
Yes, that is something that we've talked about consistently and is very true, but
I would say it's
It's-
still not the same as
yes.
Putin's
yeah, totally. I totally agree.
situation.
It's not the same, and to argue such is sheer madness.
Good night.
Night, folks. We love you. Make sure to go check out the website, FreeChinaPost.com. Obviously, share all this with your friends. If you have a little extra money, you can go check out Patreon.com. That's patreon.com/FreeChinaPost. Throw us a little of your extra Skrilla. We would appreciate that. And you'll get cool rewards for it for as little as $3 a month. But we love you, and we'll talk to you soon.